This one stock can change early buyers' lives. I'm not a financial advisor, but some advisors might say to buy as much as possible before December 20th. The stock is Tesla, ticker symbol TSLA. And you might say, well, I've heard of that one, Sam. That's not a stock to be early to. And I would say it is. They don't even have humanoids as a product you can purchase. They don't even have full self-driving. They're barely rolling it out in Texas. They've had some news that has depressed the stock price recently, including lower delivery numbers in November, some lower sales in Europe. And you know what? They've got some like tchotchke type updates. You know, if you have a Tesla and you have Grok, which is their version of ChatGPT, you get like a light show with their recent software update. But there's not been a ton of super bright, exciting news for Tesla, even though we have these massive tailwinds behind them, like autonomous vehicles and robotics taking over basically labor. No one wants to say it. So what that means is, despite all that, the stock's been going up recently. So what that tells us is there's a lot of buying interest. And if this turns, you know, a little bit of news comes in, a little bit of momentum comes in, Tesla could really skyrocket. So that is the supply and demand case for Tesla. There's a lot of demand right now, despite, you know, news. And that's kind of what you look for to know that you're in a bull market, is when the market can shrug off bad news and still go up. That's definitely a bull market. Now, this is not the market. It's just Tesla. It's kind of like the head of the snake of the meme market. You know, it's one of the biggest companies, you know, multi-trillion-dollar nearly company, but it's not the market as a whole. It is shrugging off news. It is going up. We're seeing that when the market goes up, companies like Tesla can go up even more. You know, when there's any type of big news, the election news brought Tesla up significantly. Elon and Trump are not really connected right now, so it's nice to not have that Trump overhang of a tweet or some sort of mention of drama that could tank Tesla. So that's good. We're really just looking at the chart, which I'll look at in just a minute. There's two other stocks that are really early, in my opinion. One is Planet Labs, ticker symbol PL. Coincidentally, is also related to Elon. SpaceX has plans for an IPO in 2026, and that pump has created a burst of stock price increase in all of these space stocks: SATS, ASTS, Rocket Lab, RKLB, Lunar, LUNR, even the laggard. Also in PL, which recently had earnings. So PL has that earnings solid reaction as well as the space pump going for it. So it's at a favorable spot right now. And they're not, you know, the connection to Tesla, or rather to SpaceX, which is a connection to Tesla indirectly, is a little spurious. Like, they do satellites, but it doesn't matter. I mean, people see a big headline like SpaceX IPO and they buy the whole basket of companies. So we saw that with robotics, RR going up, Serve going up, PDYN going up, Soon, SOUN having a little pop, iRobot, ticker symbol IRBT, having a big bunch of buying volume, even at a time when that stock was sort of left for dead. So that's PL. There's one other ticker that I want to keep your eyes on in addition to Tesla and PL, and that is ticker symbol Wolf, WULF. TerraWolf, they're a Bitcoin miner turned AI data center compute provider. They indirectly have an almost $10 billion deal with Google through a company called FluidStack. So what they do is they basically take on some debt and some investors, and what they do is they rent out a data center. Well, they construct it and then own it, and then they rent it out to companies like Google, sometimes through intermediaries. Google is the sort of guarantor of FluidStack. So FluidStack is like a GPU infrastructure. You know, you kind of have Google application layer, GPU infrastructure provider like CoreWeave, FluidStack, I guess. And then you have the data center compute providers like TerraWolf, Cipher, CIFR, IREN, IREN. And then you have all the companies that actually make it happen. The people who know how data centers work, and the power companies as well. Ticker symbol BE, Bloom Energy, would be that level. So those are the 3 ideas. If you like these ideas, hit that like button for the algo, and let's jump into them.
This is Sam Putnam.
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 So that was a pretty exhaustive intro, but let's just talk about what Tesla has been up against. Declining, November numbers, and then this robotaxi narrative not really happening yet. So we did have the solid holiday update though, so that's fun. Here's what the stock is up to. It looked like, a flag opportunity coming in today. It did have a little breakout so far. We'll see if it holds, but it's been on watch for a while. It was thought that it might break out back in early November. That took a turn for the worst. If we look at the market in early mid-November, that just did not help at all. This is what happened on the 13th, the 17th, and the 20th. And if we look at Tessie on those days, this is the 13th right here. This is the 17th. It impressively held. And then the 20th, it kind of held as well, but still had a pretty significant sell-off from high. So it was kind of like a failed breakout that just got wrecked with the market. So since the market's been drifting up, Tesla has been going up as well, with the exception of this day. On the 8th, there was definitely some profit taking in Tesla, but it looks like it's giving a shot at getting up over that level. So, if it does come back a little bit, that would be a buying opportunity directly off of that level. Or, you could get in here and risk maybe this high, but as long as you're risking a level that you feel comfortable with, and I'll just tell you, you should feel comfortable with levels that are very close to your average. Otherwise, you're really betting instead of taking advantage of levels. So here, for example, if you bought at 458 right now and you risked for, I can't even say this out loud because it seems pretty stupid, but what I think makes more sense, you can't really buy when it's already up, whatever it is today. It's up 4%, 3%, and it moves 3% a day. So you want to make sure the percent it's up on a given day is not more than the percent it tends to move on a given day, right? Because then you're likely to have a pullback day. So you want to wait for some kind of tight day, which I realize already happened. So I'm giving you a little bit of stale information, but unless you're a day trader, you're probably okay with that. So that's Tesla. And then PL, you might say this is up a lot too. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, yeah, DXYZ, another ticker. This is the holding company of SpaceX. It's gone on a crazy 80% gain since the IPO news. All these, SPV, secondary share, employee share, repurchase, recontracting, agreements, secondary sales are making people stoked. The stock went up a lot. People who don't have access to those want to buy this now. It's going to be a little confusing as to what happens when SpaceX goes public. Is DXYZ going to sell off because you no longer need a intermediary vehicle to invest in SpaceX shares that has fees and stuff that's also public? It's a little screwy, but anyway, DXYZ went up. SATS went up like this. Here's ASTS, which I talked about previously, which pretty incredible move. 50% in just a couple weeks. So I do think PL is the one that's still interesting because it had earnings as well. So the earnings beat estimates and you have this high volume close. So buying it right now, is a little aggressive. unless you risk yesterday's high, which would be 18. So you risk 10 cents or something like that. But ideally, and I hate to say this, but the market sells off a little, and then you can get this at like 17.8 or something like that. Or even better, PL really sells off, and then goes back. I'm just giving you like the gory details here. Comes back, and then comes back, and then tests that level right here, which is that close right here, and then goes. So that would be ideal. Sorry to make this more mathy than maybe it needs to be, but that's PL. And the other ticker that's interesting is Wolf. Did have a little bit of a failed breakout this morning, but I understand not everyone's going to see these videos, these ideas exactly as they happen. So sometimes the failed breakouts can actually be more advantageous to you, not so much to me, because obviously I want them to work as soon as I mention them. Otherwise I wouldn't have mentioned them. But if this does fail to break out, you have this level that just is continuing to get hit 15.5 here close, here and opened, here it closed, here or whatever, here and open, here it close, here and open, here it close. The red ones, they open higher than they close, right? Pretty simple. Okay, so if it comes back to 15.5, that'll be a great buying opportunity. But if it has a tight day here, that you could even buy it over yesterday's high. So that's Wolf, and the strength has been incredible. A big, almost 50% move with a little retracement. It's not really little if you measure from peak to trough. It's something like 20% down, but super strength. And do you want to have super tight risk on stocks that move, or do you want to get in stocks that don't move and just say, whatever, I'll just throw my money in here and read X or read the Wall Street Journal, and hopefully they'll mention my stock and it'll go up in like 6 months. It's like, for me, that's not interesting. So Iron's not really in the conversation. Cypher is, I did actually take a chop at it, so I should eat my words. But you'll notice when I did take a chop at it, I just, what is this loss here in percentage terms? From 20 to 19.5. That's, what is that? 2.5%, I think. Yeah. So no big deal, right? And might drift around, might hold on this moving average. I don't care. I think Wolf is looking better. And just to be clear, there is another company called Wolf Speed. Don't confuse WULF with Wolf Speed. Wolf Speed is this sort of bankruptcy company. So just mentioning that for clarity. And then as we look at other companies sort of around the horn of stocks that move, well, here's what's in the conversation. So again, Nebius, not that interesting. SanDisk, the memory names, having a little bit of a rough time of it here. So, I feel bad because I just mentioned this one, but this is where tight stops come in. If you do buy this one, and you're looking at something like whatever this is, 235, well, it immediately sold off. So it didn't even give you, it barely even hit 235 at all. Look at that in a 1 minute just to show you exactly what happened. This is like a little bit of a post-mortem. You get in immediately. It's not super liquid either. This maybe a 10-minute chart is more reasonable. If it trades less than 100,000 shares in 10 minutes, that's a problem. But it doesn't. There's plenty of liquidity, and it's a $200 stock. So this is why you set a stop. I mean, this one candle went down 4%. So you stopped out immediately. No big deal. Let it set up again. And we saw, Micron was a little extended. It's selling off. WDC selling off. Seagate selling off. They all move in lockstep. So it's kind of a real-time example of, the stocks that have extension in other areas of the sector can get pulled down, and that's what just happened to SanDisk. So as always, my ideas are about 20 to 30% right. Of course, with those 1 out of 5 being right, they return more than all the losses, in my opinion. So that's why you should listen if you already don't and somehow are listening to this from some sort of otherworldly portal. So SOUN is holding up a little bit, but just not a lot of motion here. BBAI probably looks a little bit better. It's a little bit choppy, but something to be aware of in terms of where to focus on in terms of these robotics names. Serve held up as well, and are these companies are jokes, but startups are jokes, right? Until they're not, so that's fine. PDYN, not interesting, and then iRobot. It's hard to see if this is bankruptcy squeeze or what, but it continues up, so that's really all that matters. Other stocks that are moving a lot, CLSK actually is starting to look a little constructive, so keep an eye on that. This looks like a little bit of a breakout opportunity right now, so definitely interesting. AAOI had a big move. This was a big move in all of the optical electronic stocks. So just another example of what to look for, right? If you can, here, I'll try to get some of these names off the chart. I can't get all these lines off the chart, unfortunately, because they're actually useful. These things are volume as well down on the bottom. You can't see all of them, but trust that there's volume bars here, and it's in the almost 10 million, which means there's about 200 million, which means you can put 2 million in the stock and click of a button and not move it, which is the kind of people you want trading the stock can do that because they make smooth moves. So you see how this had a nice move up and then went sideways, and all these lines start to come together. That's what you want. All these sort of Christmas tree colors coming together means that, well, it means what you're already seeing with your eyes, which is that the average price is converging, whether you look at a 5-day window or 10-day or 15-day. And when that happens and you start to get a little bit of motion to the upside, that ocean just whipsaws upwards. So big wave move. This is 30-40%, and it's kind of corny. Optoelectronics and networking, it seems like 1990s Cisco stuff, but everything that AI is doing now is built off of the shoulders of companies that have been around for 50 years. I mean, IBM was the original AI company, right? Watson. So all these companies are getting a trickle-down boost. So you can't buy AAOI now. I'm almost sorry for mentioning it because it's an awesome move to have missed, but gives a great picture of what a move up can start to look like before it happens. Quantum names also in the conversation, IONQ right there, but not really interesting enough for me. Just no construction, little sell off. It's kind of more holding than building. Riot, though, more interesting. These Bitcoin miners are probably all catching a bid. If we look around, Mara, I'm sure, is starting to do that as well. But yeah, INSP selling off a little bit. Rigetti is another quantum and a firm buy now, pay later. Nothing interesting. Nuclear is completely uninteresting. And when you look at Oklo, you're basically seeing SMR and NNE in one stock. So Oklo is the Sam Altman's head of the snake sort of stock. And I mean that in the most respectful way possible. A-Lab holding up, but just been choppy as heck. So I don't know if you want to play that. And then these retail names have just been on fire. Abercrombie and Fitch having a big move up. And if you look across the board, AEO, it's a little sloppy, but 4 green days in a row. Urban Outfitters trying to break out. And then Kohl's, interesting as well, holding this high volume close. So the earnings candle close is the most important level in the entire stock market. It's most often, it's repeatable. Every stock that's big has earnings. So super easy risk level. Institutions buy above there, below there. It looks like a poor earnings reaction and everyone wants to run for the door. Battery names holding up, and really ought to look up what ETNTG does, but it just hasn't gotten to a level where it's interesting, but it's just trickling up. IoT, no surprise this sold off when you look at a 5-year chart. This is basically choppy POS consistently, so you kind of just have to look at past behavior to predict future behavior, and it may be judgmental, but it's rarely wrong. And then Joby, electric vehicle takeoff. This is moves in lockstep with Archer. So those actually look a little bit interesting. You know, shades of gray here, but maybe Archer slightly more just because of the lack of wicks on the tops of the candles, which indicate selling pressure. There's just a lot to look at here, but a lot that needs a little bit more sideways, I think. ON is it's this semiconductor company, yeah. So semis SHM, that's not what it is at all. It's very close to that. I always forget what this semiconductor SMH. That's very close. Selling off a little bit. So as has been the case for the last few weeks, the stocks that everyone wants to, you know, get excited about are not super exciting. You know, AMD, Nvidia, they're just not where the money's flowing right now. So, you know, with that in mind, just no need to worry about that, but definitely don't buy them right now. So yeah, Joby though, Joby looks interesting. And maybe semis will shape up, but it's just not right now. AVAV, another drone stock that's a little bit bigger, selling off. The drone stocks in general, I think ONDS is the only one. UMAC, this is a very similar theme a lot of these names have, where they've been curling up a little and then leveling off. Red Cat in that category as well. But until they really catch a bid like SAR might, you know, you can get 50%, but you're also dealing with these single down days can be as much as 10-15%, which is extremely scary. You have to have, you know, expert level risk control. Not really. I mean, you just have to set a stop. But some brokers, you have to remember to set that stop every single day. So that's something to be aware of, because it'll not be good till cancel. It'll cancel itself. So that's pretty annoying, right? CFLT is some sort of a merger situation. You got to avoid mergers and acquisitions whenever possible. But yeah, there's a lot of companies. All these companies I'm mentioning right here have average daily ranges of 20, you know, over the past year on average. Now, that is not exactly true, because that doesn't make any sense when you look at some of these charts. But they definitely move at least more than 5% in the past 10 days for the most part. You know, 4, 8, 7. You can see these numbers up here in the corner, which means that they're interested in, they're interesting movers, and they're also liquid enough. I have an additional filter on here. I'm just making sure I'm telling you exactly, you know, how you can do this on your own. I mean, we talk about this in the Discord as well, but that's the sauce. So the main ideas, though, Tesla, right here. PL as well, although that one seems to be going, you know, so act fast. Or hopefully it'll sell off over the weekend when you see this. And then Wolf, you know, did have a little failed breakout, but it seems to be accelerating now. So if you like these ideas, hit that like button. If you want a free course on how to find the next NVIDIA without gambling on startups, hit that subscribe. And if you want answers and you have questions, or, you know, you made a little money with these ideas, head over to stockscommunity.com. You know, give it a 7-day trial. If you're making money without knowing what you're doing, imagine what you could do when you get to ask questions and all that. So that is my offer to you.
Sam Putnam.
This is Sam Putnam.
This is Sam Putnam.